it sounds expensive, because if you do it for one, customization is very expensive. You do it for thousands, it's not expensive. You pay the money up front, and then you save that money on every unit that you build. I mean, it's about $1 billion to make an LCD factory, or a TFT factory.
Okay.
And we don't also have that skill set anymore in the United States to manage and run those factories, and it takes about 2 years to build one.
Welcome to Manufacturing Insiders. I have two exciting guests with me today. Keith Morton, who is the founder and CTO of DisplayLogic, Mike Schreiber, who's the head of sales. Both of them have a lot of experience in their, kind of arenas in the business. Keith has been in the electronic space for a lot of years, has a lot of wisdom and a lot of tips, I think, that are going to help the listeners to this particular episode. We're going to cover a range of different topics. We're going to talk a little bit about supply chain and kind of how tariffs and some of the other challenges in the marketplace are affecting business and how we're dealing with those. We're also going to talk about just kind of effective ways to market and sell, products into the industrial commercial space. And so welcome to the podcast, guys. Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. And good morning, everybody.
So Keith, let's just start with you, since we hadn't had as much time to talk. Our pre-podcast little chat found that Keith and I had some things in common. Keith is a big outdoorsman and sees the value in kind of getting away from technology for a while and really enjoying nature, which is something I'm extremely passionate about. In fact, I kind of see, like, in the long term, I'd love to start this business where I teach guys, the city dwelling type guys, how to hunt and how to fish. And like, you just kind of get them out into nature and show them things that they really haven't had exposure to. Kids, I think, would really benefit from that too. So anyways,
that makes three of us, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The three of us that are interested in that, or three of us that need that?
No, three of us that are interested in that. I'm a big outdoorsy guy myself. I go camping once or twice every year. Huge into fishing, whether it's freshwater, saltwater, you name it. So, yep, that's right up my alley. That's
awesome. Yeah, I just think it'd be so cool. And honestly, that's when I feel at my best too, is just being out in nature, which I'm assuming you guys can relate to as well.
Oh, yeah.
So Keith, tell me a little bit about your background, how you got into the business, and just like a quick summary of what you guys make and who you're selling to.
Sure. So I've been in electronics since the 80s. Was involved in video games, big stand-up arcade games.
Okay.
Then got involved in music technology, recording technology, worked in that industry for a few years, and then went into factory automation. And that's when I had my first exposure to real displays, touch screens, and human machine interface. Those were mostly CRT back then, and there were some character module displays and other ways of interfacing to automation equipment. Then later on, moved into more in engineering, and then started into, believe it or not, accidentally into marketing. I answered an ad for a technical job. It was posted wrong. We did the interview anyway. And I ended up accepting the job as a product manager, doing marketing on a LCD product. It was a paint mixing scale for automotive, explosion proof, and it had a membrane keypad and was very integrated. And it had an integrated monochrome display at that point, like quarter VGA or something like that. Then got involved in distribution, electronics distribution, focused on displays, running a display value-added program. Little ways after that, decided to go off on my own. In around 2007, started DisplayLogic, which is where I got involved with Mike. Mike's been working for me for many years, working together as partners. And we've been providing display solutions. What we noticed working in distribution was that there wasn't a lot of standard solutions, because displays themselves are not really standard. Even though they might have the same diagonal size, there's often different interfaces, different mechanics. Not like ICs. I could buy a 74 LS series IC from 10 different companies, and they'll all plug in and work. right? So displays are all pretty specific, different brightness, different resolution, different diagonal size, contrast ratio, etc. And then you have the interface side of it, which is the touchscreen. Also, a lot of different technologies, although mostly PCAP and resistive now. But taking those together and making a cohesive solution that matches the customer's application, not over designing it, right? So they pay too much, but designing it correctly for their market and their
Application
application.
in each case, yeah.
Exactly. And then also combine that with all the challenges in supply chain with displays, because they're so specialized. It's not your typical supply chain.
Right. So, backing up, you mentioned this story about you kind of taking the wrong job and it ended up being the right job.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that. So, the job that you were applying for was what?
It was a Windows lab technician, Windows the operating system, not outdoor Windows, at a company called Sartorius that made
Gotcha.
100-year-old German scale company.
Okay. So you applied for that job because you had some experience in the engineering side of things, and then
Right.
you ended up going into a marketing for the displays.
Yeah, it was a product marketing job. Well, it was a product with a display. It wasn't just displays, but that's where I got very involved in displays and understanding them, how they work, and the electronics behind them. And then from there, it was just add in the paper, because this is pre-internet now. Add the paper for a display product manager.
So
But
that
that's how
kind
I
of
went
changed
from
everything, right?
engineering to marketing.
That was the moment. If it hadn't happened, you wouldn't be here today, right?
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's cool. And I want to touch on one other thing you mentioned in your initial discourse there, which was automation and its connection to displays. Could you kind of draw a line between those two a little bit for me? Because I like to talk about automation a lot on this podcast, because I think that it's one of the most important things for manufacturers to focus on right now. And the reason for that is pretty obvious, but I think the labor shortage is a big part of that. Number one. Then number two, we have international competition, which we're always going to have that, whether or not there's tariffs or not. So anything that you could share that would be helpful about, that discussion between displays and automation.
Well, sure. So, I mean, mainly it's just displays sort of in general, because it's the human machine interface.
Right.
So, in what we were designing at the time, these were production monitors for and machine controllers for mail automation. So, which is probably one of the oldest forms of automation. It was a result of World War II draft notices being sent out. After World War II, they had all these machines designed to mail massive quantities of mail in a short period of time. They didn't know what to do with them. That's where junk mail comes from.
Right.
So let's keep mailing stuff. And then automating that also lended itself into credit card bills and things like that required another level of sequencing, because you might have a 1-page bill or a 3-page bill. The machine needs to know, if you have a person doing that, maybe they could do 50 bills an hour, fold them, put them in an envelope. The machine would do around 3,000 to 4,000 envelopes an hour.
Right.
And the display, we would program all the aspects of the machine, how thick an envelope was, how wide it was, how fast you wanted the machine to go. We control mistakes. If there was error correction. If something didn't get pulled, the machine could detect it. But the display, you would control everything about the machine, all the aspects. It's something like anywhere from 10 to 100 different aspects of the machine, and you need it on the machine, right? You don't want to have to go in another room. So,
Right.
Flat panel displays being small and integrated enabled you to integrate it right into the machine. Although we did start with CRTs. They were huge, though.
And I like to make the assumption that everybody listening to the podcast is as much of a dummy as me. And so the acronyms, CRT stands for what?
A cathode ray tube. That's
Okay.
the old big picture tube TVs and computer monitors that weigh, 50 pounds and take up like 1/4 of your desk. back
Yep.
in the day.
Yep. So, and then 5-panel displays refers to what exactly?
Flat panel
Oh,
displays.
flat panel. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what percentage of the displays that you guys are selling are sort of those user interfaces versus just displaying information, or is it almost always a mix between the two use cases?
That's interesting. It's probably 70-30, 70% human machine interface. The 30% of displays only are probably more digital advertising.
That
Or
and bus stops, right? Things like that.
yes,
Displaying information. So
fast food order confirmation we've been involved in. So
yeah,
it is a display only, right? It's letting you know what you're getting, but you're not touching anything on the screen yourself.
Did you say Taco Bell, Mike, before?
yeah, we're in Taco Bell.
Taco
I
Bell,
think
yeah.
10 years plus now,
So,
if I'm
yeah,
not mistaken. About 10 years plus. And to Keith's point, yeah, just displaying information, somebody's not getting out of their vehicle and touching it. It's letting them know what their order is, or we have, bus stop applications where there's, information at the bus stop, right, telling you the timing, the routes, etc.
Yep. Yeah, I noticed, must have been within the last couple of years anyways, that McDonald's also invested quite a bit into those sorts of displays.
Oh yeah,
Sure.
the big menu boards. Yeah.
Yeah. Who do you think they're working with for those?
Samsung, actually,
Okay.
directly with Samsung. But we have been noticing they're having some trouble with the outdoor displays. We've seen a lot of them starting to fail from the
Burning out
The
from sunlight.
lamination and yellowing, right, of the display from
Yep.
UV.
Yep. So you guys, just in terms of competitive advantage, I heard, I think Mike mentioned before, and you mentioned it also, sort of building a product that doesn't have excess features that the customer doesn't need, right, to keep the cost within a reasonable sphere.
Sure.
But then also making sure that the features they do need are exceptional. Like obviously you can't have that screen yellowing over time and
Right.
that sort of stuff.
Right. So what we like to do is we take our approach is we work with customers to, really understand their application, really understand their use case. Somebody doing a marine display out on a boat in Florida is going to be different than, somebody doing an indoor display at a hospital, right?
Right.
A very different use case, a very different application. So we like to really dive in, understand the use case and the application. And, we're display agnostic. We work with all the major display companies, and we try to put together a solution, whether it's custom, full custom, or semi-custom. Sometimes you can take an off-the-shelf display, and we could do some things to it, backlighting, changing out optical filters, etc., to create a solution that's really going to fit the customer's end application and use case.
Right.
correct.
So when somebody comes to you, typically it's because they haven't been able to find an off-the-shelf solution that's gonna kind of do what they need to do. Is that somewhat accurate?
Not always. Sometimes it's about not being able to find a solution. Sometimes they're in an end of life, an EOL situation where they need a drop-in replacement where we can, match it mechanically, electrically, etc. And sometimes it's on price. I mean, you can't always ignore price, right? So, but we like to build on value, not just price. And we've seen companies, especially startups, go belly up because they went after price instead of going after the solution that truly would have worked for them.
Right. The old
Right.
race to the
And
bottom.
customization, like you mentioned. So
Yeah.
you brought up the fact of paying for features that you don't need or aspects you don't need. If, for example, you buy a laptop, it has maybe 6, 7 different connectors on the laptop, and most people maybe use one of them or
Right.
possibly two of them.
Right.
You
Right.
pay for all of them.
Yep.
But, you're only buying one laptop. So that's
Yep.
not so bad. If you're buying equipment because you make a machine, you might be buying 5,000. So paying an extra $5 on the laptop is not a problem, but paying an extra $5 on 10,000 pieces, right? You'd rather put that $50,000 back in your pocket. So
Right.
making it dedicated, customization sometimes I think to some people sounds expensive, but not customizing when you're buying volume is expensive.
I
You're
see.
better off making something designed to fit your need. And I'll use Taco Bell as an example. They have a display. It's 150 feet away from the restaurant. You don't want to put the computer outside because it's very hot and it gets very expensive to put a computer outside. You need fans and cooling. So they had about 4 different boards inside, one to extend video, one to extend sound, another one to monitor temperature, and another for another signal microphone. We integrated everything into a single board. So we took it from 36 potential points of failure down to 9 potential points of failure.
Hmm.
And it also reduced the cost of assembly because those 4 boards all had to have interconnecting cables. So now you had like 8 or 9 cables. Now we only have 3 cables. So doing that, and we also combine power and signal as well, and power over Ethernet as our interface. So the whole system only has a single connector. So the installation cost, they had told us back in the day we were saving them $1 million a year in installation cost. So to me, customization, we think about custom cars and custom, vans or whatever, and it sounds expensive because if you do it for one, customization is very expensive. If you do it for thousands, it's not expensive. You pay the money up front, and then you save that money on every unit that you build.
Right. I
Yeah,
really
sure.
like that concept of kind of focusing on points of failure instead of features, right? I think that's really interesting. I have to think about like the applications for that, but I feel like there's a lot of them. I think a lot of companies probably don't think like that. They're thinking about features and not points of failure.
Yeah. I mean, of course, we think about both, right? It's got to meet the application. So for the Taco Bell, it had to be bright enough to be seen in the sun. It had to handle some level of vandalism, right? People get angry, they punch the screen, or
Depends on what part of the country you're in, right?
storms, electrical storms, regular storms, and so all that we get very little back. We have 2 patents as it's based around outdoor displays for optical bonding and for display cooling. So out in the sun, so we don't use fans outside typically, where
Solid
most of the
state.
solutions use many fans to keep it cool.
Yeah, a good example of that is at the bus stations down in Florida, right?
Yeah.
Outdoor display, direct sunlight, no fans, right? And I think you should touch on the board a little more. How it monitors the unit and sends information back, right, to the company,
Mm.
to let you know about failure without somebody physically seeing it in the field, right?
Yeah, that was our first product. Was this because we were involved in the beginning of digital signage, and we're taking displays and putting them out in the sun. They were never designed to do that, and so we were realizing that these things were melting down and having all kinds of damage.
Yep.
So the first thing we do is we're monitoring temperature, automatically adjusting brightness and contrast to get the best visibility without overheating it.
Yep.
And what we noticed was you get a lot of data back about how much power the display is using, what the light output is, and you start to be able to do some predictive analysis because you have thousands of displays in the field, and you say, well, okay, 90% of the displays are working in this range, right? A certain range. And you start to see when displays start working out of the range, something's going wrong. It's not broken yet, but something is starting to go wrong. And you could send out a tech ahead of time before the display goes down and before there's lost revenue and fix it ahead of time. Because, for example, in fast food, they want to get somebody through in I think it's about 45 seconds. And if there's not an order confirmation display, they found it takes like 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes. Because they have to read back your order to you. If you're looking at what you order and you see it, And then you say, oh, wait, that's not what I ordered. But if someone
Right.
has to read it back to you, I'm like, what was that? I didn't hear it.
Yep.
Did you say extra cheese? Or, you know what I mean? It sounds silly, but they make a lot of their money, and throughput during lunch hours is like 60% of fast food's income.
I'm sure.
Right.
Yeah.
So if that display goes down and it's down for a couple of days, they're losing tens of thousands of dollars of
Yep.
revenue, right?
Right.
So being able to have that predictive analysis and seeing that, hey, there might be a problem with this ahead of time, could potentially save the company tens of thousands of dollars, and that's not even talking about the installation costs that keep pushing, right?
Right.
So it's a little bit of NRE tooling, et cetera, on the front end, and it's pretty reasonable. Will could potentially save a company a lot of money on the back end, right? Because
Right.
they're getting a solution that's fine-tuned, highly defined for their specific application and use case, and they're not buying an off-the-shelf unit that has a bunch of features they don't need. And talking on failing points, I mean, think about COVID a couple of years ago with all the component shortages, right? So you have all these additional components on any one of these boards that maybe aren't needed by the customer. Well, not just as a failure point, but God forbid there's another shortage crisis. You have all these pieces you don't need on the board that are going to prevent you from being able to get product. Where
Right.
if a board was designed specifically for what you're using it for and had the inputs and outputs that you need, there's less failure points and there's less chance of a supply chain issue on the components.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I got to thinking about my truck when you were talking about like features you don't need. I'm like,
Don't talk about
how much
trucks.
did I pay for my freaking seatbelt alarm and for the automatic shutting my truck down every stoplight that I shut off every time I get in the truck? Like, how much did I pay for this stuff that I don't want? Right.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah, I said don't talk about trucks because I got a COVID car. I pre-ordered a 2021 Ford Bronco that I didn't get till 2022 because of the shortages, and it's had all types of problems.
Yeah. Oh, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Yeah. Everything, nothing lasts as long as it used to. We talk, it seems like every conversation kind of leads back to that, is like, we're so worried about the environment and green stuff and everything like that. Yet we are building and buying the cheapest freaking products that last 2 years when they used to last 15 years.
Right.
And it's like, you want to talk about saving the environment? Let's build products that last, right?
Well, this goes back to that conversation of price versus value, right? And we like to sell on value, not price. We're very competitive anyway on price, but to shave a couple of pennies here or there, to your point, you want a product that's going to last you 15 years, or you want one that you have to rebuy in 8 months after you don't have support.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Just like
So-
McDonald's, they could have bought yours first, right?
Yeah, well, Taco Bell's not complaining, so yeah.
Yeah. I think you
very
brought up
happy.
another important point that that should be emphasized really to anyone in the audience, and that's gathering data. The fact that you were able to gather data on these displays outside, number one, to kind of understand the range that they're operating in, and maybe you don't need as robust on this end, but you need more robust on this end, those sorts of decisions. But then also to be able to do that preventive maintenance. But that data is going to be so valuable to anybody that can get data. And it almost doesn't matter what data you're gathering. Like if you've got a CNC machine and you can measure the output of that machine, how many parts per hour, that indicator could give you all the information you need about what you need to adjust or if something's going wrong, things of that nature. But in order to leverage automation and AI, the first thing we need is data.
That's
And
right.
so
Oh, yeah.
that's where we need to start, is getting sensors, getting any sort of mechanism we can to gather data.
Oh, of course. They say knowledge is powder. Power. Guess what? Data is knowledge, right? This is why you've got companies like Google, Meta, et cetera, that have these giant warehouses filled with servers that are just collecting data,
Yep.
right? So there's a lot, definitely 100% a lot to that.
Yep. Yeah. And we all kind of are aware at least peripherally, that AI is kind of the way of the future, and it's going to upend everything and change everything. AI needs data to operate with, and so the more data
Sure.
you can collect, the more empowered you're going to be able to leverage that technology.
That's right.
Sure, and not just not just leverage it, but to make decisions ahead of time, right? Preventative maintenance, like we said before.
Right.
You can make key decisions based off that data you already have.
Right. Yep. So Keith, kind of going back into the the operation that you have there, how big is the company, and what are you physically doing in house versus what are you kind of sourcing externally?
Sure. Well, we're part of a family of companies that's over $100 million a year um, in various technologies, and it's a parent company. But we do probably about 20% of our assembly in the United States in our facility, and the rest is either in Taiwan or China, usually
Okay.
volume based or technology based. You've got to be competitive nowadays. We'd love to do everything in the United States. We can certainly do that. Tariffs has made it challenging, however. We know about, tariffs have driven decisions that should be driven by technology and capability, but the price differential doesn't allow us to do that. But
Right.
we do usually the higher quality, higher end stuff in house in New York. We have a 6,000 square foot facility there. We do assembly there. All the R&D that we do is in the United States. So engineering, prototyping, support,
Failure
repairs,
analysis, right?
failure analysis. So we control it. And then we have people in China and Taiwan managing what we do there. Look at the factories. We do quality control before products leave those countries. So, you don't have to deal with a lot of returns back and forth, all the
Right.
shipping
So
charges associated with that.
yeah, to piggyback on that, so we have, DisplayLogic shirt wearing employees housed in China, in Taiwan, that are kind of a filter on the product coming out of the factories, doing the OQC, right?
Yep.
Outgoing quality control, et cetera.
Yep.
Unfortunately, there are no so the key part of an LCD is the cell. We call it the LCD cell, the glass part. In industry, we'll just call it glass. But it's the actual, you have a backlight and then you have the LCD cell, and the
Okay.
light projects through the LCD, and the LCD changes the color and switches the pixels on and off. No LCD cells are made in the United States. All LCD cells are made in Asia, either Korea, Taiwan, or China. There's no other, so we have to get that part of it there. What we do with it afterwards is part of the customization and the packaging and system integration. Right. So the LCD cell is probably about, depending on what we're making, 10 to 30% of the cost
Okay.
of an assembly. We would love to see a factory in the United States. We have the CHIPS program for semiconductors. Well, you need to display the data somewhere. I believe we should do the same thing with displays.
So why do you
100%.
why do you think that hasn't happened?
Cost.
Just cost?
Yeah.
Cost, yeah. I mean, it's about $1 billion to make an LCD factory, or a TFT factory,
Okay.
and we don't also have that skill set anymore in the United States to manage and run those factories, and it takes about 2 years to build one.
Okay.
Now we own the technology was invented here, and for example, the largest LCD glass manufacturer in the world is Corning from upstate New York. Just like you buy Corning ceramic, pots and
Insulation.
Pyrex measuring cups. Same company makes like a huge percentage of the LCD glass in the world, but they had to move those factories to China and to Asia because they need to be in close proximity of the rest of the work that gets done.
I see. Yeah.
So we could do it here. It would take a big move.
A big
Yeah.
investment, yeah, by somebody.
But it's automated, so labor cost is not an issue anymore. You can run an LCD factory with about 20 people. It'd be the size of about 5 football fields.
Wow.
the actual cell production, not the module assembly, which is putting the backlight on and the metal. That requires a lot. That's still a lot of hands-on. That's why it gets done in China.
Mm-hmm.
Low labor costs for the module assembly.
Okay. Yeah, okay. So we need to start advocating for the cell production in the US. Huh.
Absolutely.
Very interesting. Yeah, and it seems like it would be a easy win because even if it was you know, a 20-30% higher cost final product, the proximity I think would make up for that, and they would certainly gain some market share.
Absolutely. Well, we have 55% tariff nowadays, so that eats
Is
up
that
to
what it's at
30%
right
real
now?
quick.
Yeah, coming out
That's
of China, specifically, yeah, coming out of China. Taiwan, I think, is 10%, if I'm not
10%.
mistaken. Yeah.
Okay.
But you still got about, I would say, 90% of all displays coming with a country of origin of China nowadays.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, tell me about like what's interesting and new in the field of displays, and you know, maybe about the micro LEDs.
Yeah, micro LED is extremely interesting. It's kind of like OLED, for those who maybe know something about OLED, but OLED has some technical weaknesses, right, which affect the life of an OLED. So OLED's fine for home television where you're only using it hopefully 2 or 3 hours a day.
Right.
To a medical device or industrial device that might be running 12 to 24 hours a day.
Right.
OLED can't handle that. Micro LED has no problem with any of that. So micro LED is high efficiency, high brightness, and long life. Sounds great. Very expensive because it's new, right? When LCDs came out, they were about 10 times the price of a CRT, even though a CRT had way more material, parts, but it was all mature, all the equipment was all paid for. With micro LED, they're still using pick and place equipment, which is how you make circuit boards. So each pixel is individually placed on a micro LED. It looks amazing. It is amazing. It can go outdoors. It'll last a long time, but it's still at least 10x the price of OLED.
Mm.
So as the manufacturing catches up with the technology, I can't tell you whether it's going to be in 3 years or 10 years. That will be the prominent display technology for sure at some
Right.
point in time.
Okay. So I guess if somebody wanted to kind of get in front of that, what sort of needs do you think that are going to, you know, from a manufacturing side, what's going to be needed to be able to kind of ramp that up, say in the US?
Converting from individual pixels to basically making the matrix, and people are working this right now, making a matrix where you get, let's say, 9 pixels or 20 pixels by 20 pixels and can place them or do the whole thing at once. Like right now, LCDs are made with, a etching process. There's a couple different processes, but lithographic and etching with masks. And it's kind of similar to the way they produce PC boards, but with a lot of different chemicals. We got to go in that
Okay.
direction with the micro LED, where we either deposit or grow the LEDs right on the glass. And I don't think that technology is there yet. So they can do better with the semiconductor technology, just like we do with chips. So
Yeah. Yeah, and the new technology, I can't tell you like how annoying it is that the old incandescent bulbs that might last you a couple of years, you replace them with these LED bulbs, and now I'm replacing them. And the LEDs are supposed to last longer and stuff. I'm replacing them twice a year
really,
in any fixture.
wow,
Yeah, I mean they're the ones that still screw into the regular socket, but I think it's
right.
it's not the bulb itself that goes out, right? It's what the technology or the chip that drives it, the driver.
In a solid state, maybe. I haven't had that experience myself. Maybe need to buy a different.
Maybe you have to tell me
Maybe
what
you have an
brand to buy.
yeah, you might have an electrical issue. I've installed all LED bulbs in my house, and I started noticing something similar, and it turned out that there was a transformer or something that I forget the verbiage they used, but they had to come and, redo the electric for me and 7 other houses since we're all in the
Oh,
same, you know,
interesting.
yeah, but it was blowing out, bulbs left and right. And I had a couple of, cables go on fire, plugged into the wall, right?
Oh yeah.
So maybe you got something like that, fluctuating current coming to your house.
Yeah, it might be. Yeah, because it's
Yeah.
very noticeable. I mean, like, the ones in my bathroom, I change probably, each one of them twice a year.
Well, that could be from water though, right? Um,
Could be moisture. I mean, I don't really notice any corrosion on them or anything like that. I don't know. But
Yeah, maybe getting on the inside. Yeah, LEDs should have about the same life as incandescent. Although LEDs may tend to actually go out completely, where incandescents typically, and fluorescent get dimmer and dimmer.
right. Yeah.
LEDs also get dimmer over time, but overall they should be a little better. All lights dim over time,
Yeah.
whether it be incandescent,
fluorescent.
fluorescent, especially fluorescent.
Yeah.
Incandescent's probably better for that. They tend to just go. They also will just go out as well. The filament goes bad.
Right. So with the tariff conversation, what's kind of your strategy? I mean, are you kind of meeting weekly and kind of looking at each market and making decisions? Like how are you dealing with it?
Well, we started preparing for this about a year and a half ago. Pretty sure that tariffs were going to be an issue based on what were possible political changes.
Yeah.
And also just problems with China in general being a risk. So if you go back in history, displays started in the US, then went to Japan, then Taiwan, then China. So now we started moving back to Taiwan and Korea as well. But Korea is almost 100% commercial. But, for commercial applications, televisions basically.
Right.
But we started moving our capabilities and beefing up our capabilities in Taiwan a year and a half ago.
Mm-hmm.
So, and which turned out to be the right thing to do with a 55% tariff in China and only 10% in Taiwan. So I think is a good thing, by the way, overall. I think it's better to be spread out, not have one country have 90% of the capacity.
Yep.
Especially if there's a potential problem with that country. Guess what? Now you can't get displays at all.
Yep.
Right. And since the right now the tariff situation is kind of like the stock market, one day it's up, one day it's down. So we'd like to make sure we're partnered with the right companies in not just China but Taiwan, as Keith said, Korea, right? And we're also looking, at places in Malaysia, right, India, Vietnam. Just making sure we're staying ahead of this, worldly tariff issue, so to speak.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, it's a really good point that, a lot of companies think about diversification and they think, oh, we like to be working in the, commercial space and the industrial space, or we would like to work in aerospace and medical, et cetera. But really, diversification has a lot more implications than just in your business development. Really, your supply chain is something that also very much needs diversified. Another area that I really like to talk about diversification is in your workforce, where you're mixing in technology. Even if you don't really need that automation right now, it's going to be needed in the future.
Oh, yeah.
Number one. Number two, also having kind of a mix of younger generation and older generation, because a lot of people realize that, hey, their workforce is aging and they're going to leave at some point. Even if you don't need that young person right now, maybe you can use them for something, but at least get them in the door and start getting them kind of familiarized with the process and learning from the old hats. So there's a lot of different types of diversification. I think that supply chain is a big one. I think that's really important.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Single source could be a problem, and it happens all the time. Sometimes you don't have a choice, depending on your application. You end up pigeonholed because you need a certain size or resolution combination that's just not popular.
Right.
But that's risky.
Yeah, we like to, we can do almost any display size, right? But we like to try and find that sweet spot on socket size, so to speak, on displays where we could do a multi-source strategy. with multiple display cells that are, a good mechanical and electrical fit. So we can give a customer, even if, we get three of them approved, three different, cell manufacturers, and we build them all into the same module. It's kind of like future-proof in their supply chain. Even if one goes end of life, well, they still have two other ones that they've already approved that are going to be form, fit, and function, that they can fall back on.
Right. Yeah, I mean that makes a lot of sense. So how do you get in front of these customers? What does your growth kind of look like over the past, 6-7 years? And, what kind of, methods are you leveraging to grow your market?
I'll defer to Keith on the growth part of it, but we utilize a number of strategies. We do a lot of customers, engage with customers directly. We do a number of trade shows every year, and we've had good results going to trade shows and getting, in front of the market, in front of customers, in front of technology. And it's nice to go to trade shows just because you start to see some of those future technologies that are going to take over the industry, right? So we get a number of customers there. We keep a highly effective, highly efficient, highly experienced core team within DisplayLogic, and we build good partnerships with reps. There's a number of rep networks out there that we work with. We work directly with all the major distributors. Name any one you want, we work with them. So I would say it's a healthy mix between the direct customer engagements, through trade shows or cold calling, right? Dial for dollars. We still do some of that, right?
Yep.
That's an old thing. But also we do have really good partnerships with reps, who are out there in front of the customers, their feet on the ground, feet on the street, in almost every state of the United States, and we have good distribution partnerships. So,
are your reps? Do they work directly for you, or they work for that distributor?
No, they work. They work as their own. Hold on one second. My old dog. This one's going to be taken
right.
out. He's barking at me.
Well, so we have our own reps regionally, and then we use manufacturers reps.
Okay.
For more specific. They'll have 4 or 5 people in a single state. We'll have one person covering multiple states and working with those manufacturers reps. We also work with distributors. And the other way we get business is DisplayLogic gets a lot of business through reputation. We have a reputation of being able to get things done, and especially harder things, which is a two-edged sword because I'd like to get some of the easy stuff as well, but it seems a lot of people come to us because we're able to do the stuff that's hard to do.
And we do get some customers through the website too, right?
Yeah. Sure.
That's right. There's a lot of companies that are really good at marketing. They may or may not be good at what they're marketing, but they're good at marketing. And that is definitely challenging, getting the word out. But
yeah. So I'm always interested in the manufacturer's rep conversation. So do these reps have multiple lines that they're representing, or
yes.
Yeah, they aren't just dedicated to you?
Well, yeah. So a lot of the reps, they're in IC business, right? They're selling ICs, hard drives, RAM, right? And so there's a board in the back end, and a lot of devices have some type of user interface that requires a display and touch. So these same reps and the companies they're working with, if they have a back end board that needs some type of video, right, HDMI, anything like that, there's going to be some type of display or monitor on the front end. So it kind of goes hand in hand, right? It's almost like an easy tap into getting some display opportunities, right?
Yeah.
They tend to be more customer specific, as we're product specific, right? So they'll sell a lot of products to a certain number of customers.
Right.
They'll sell to anybody, but most of the reps have a good core of customers that they support, and those customers look to them for a lot of different type of parts. So when they need a display, they go to their rep. Hey, I'm looking for a display. Who do you have? Who supports you? Who gives good support? Things like that.
In my experience, a rep is only as good as he is familiar with what you do and being able to identify the pain points of the customer to know when to apply your product.
Sure.
What mechanisms? Yeah, and if you disagreed, please tell me because that's my
No,
understanding.
so I think there, especially in my career over the years, I've heard a lot of people, talk about that and talking about reps kind of in the same way. Um, for us, what we like to do is make sure any reps that we're engaged with or any reps that we're partnering with, we have those conversations to educate them if they're not already
Right.
educated on displays, on touch
Yep.
technology, right? Um,
Yep.
some of them have been in the industry longer than us, and they know displays like the back of their hand. But there is
Yep.
a curve there, and a lot of times, we make sure we educate, and make sure the reps can act like an extension of our company, right?
Right.
They know who DisplayLogic is, what we're capable of, the types of enhancements and value we could add to a display or a touch solution, and once they've kind of got that education and that learning, they're able to talk, confidently and, um, I don't know the other word I'm looking for, educated on the topic with customers, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah,
so
and
it,
that was
it's
going to be my question was, what was kind of your mechanism for, making sure that that rep had the information that they needed? Um,
Yeah, we
so
got
the
the white
education
papers.
process, yeah, what all does that involve? Like, how intensive is that? Like, you know, do you just give
uh,
them printed material or, how
so
do you do
so
that?
I mean every rep's different. Like I said, some have more experience in the LCD world than others. Sometimes it's just a matter of sending over some white papers and some information on touch technology, display technology. Sometimes it's, having a couple of calls and doing a training, right?
Hmm.
Um, to at least do the basics, because we don't necessarily need a rep to know everything about displays and what we do. They just need to know enough to get a conversation going. And if they
Hmm.
run into trouble, they loop us in, right?
Right.
We're the subject, they're carrying all these different lines. We're the subject matter experts on this.
Mhm.
So, they loop us in when needed, and uh, we drop our knowledge, right?
Yeah.
I look for a rep also to be able to really manage the communications. I think is
Yes.
really important. So even if they're not, they're never going to know what we know or any other line. They're not going to know it as well as the people that they're working with. But what does happen sometimes, you get a rep that gets a nice win in displays or whatever market, and they like it because it's a pretty high ASP, average selling price, and so they learn about it through the process of handling an opportunity. But even if they don't, we tell them the minimum questions that we need. We have an online configurator, by the way, where they could, if they just go through our online configurator, which gives a graphical interface as you're doing the check boxes, it'll
Yep.
show you what you're building basically. So it's an online system builder. They
Oh,
can
that's
follow
cool.
that, ask the right questions, but basically we tell them get us the size of the display, the resolution of the display, and what it's being used in. That's
Yep.
80 to 90% of the information.
Okay.
Right.
Uh, and
Sometimes
then get us on the phone with the
sometimes
customer.
go ahead.
Yeah, we'll go on the phone to the customer with them, do a conference call, and we have a huge demo pool. We have over 200 demos. We'll send them the demos that they need for that application for that customer. And,
Right.
with displays, seeing is believing, right?
Yep.
It's a visual
Right.
product.
Yep.
Specs are important and specs are good, but you need to see it.
Right.
Yeah, and actually, Nate, one of your bullet points that you wanted to bring up was actually our strategies for getting, our products in front of customers and accelerating the sales cycle. And I think Keith kind of just touched on that a little bit there. We have this first in, first to win mentality, right? So to Keith's point, we keep a pretty well-loaded demo pool, and we work with partners. It's a fine-tuned supply chain, with low lead times, right? And low dollars,
Yep.
emery tooling, low cost to market. So with those, couple of things combined, The idea is we're able to get, even if it's not an exact fit for what the customer is looking for, we're able to get, a proof of concept, something in the customer's hand so they could see, maybe something in their resolution in their display size. Maybe it doesn't have the right brightness. Maybe it doesn't have the right viewing angles. Maybe it's not a perfect fit, but it's something that's close. So they could see it firsthand. They could work with it firsthand. They could load their own images on that firsthand, right? And see how it's actually going to look in their end product. And then that's been a winning strategy for us.
No, I like that a lot. I was kind of curious if you have any thoughts about like how another manufacturer might kind of employ that philosophy where, obviously if you have a demo that's maybe not the right size, but it has the right technology, that's a pretty easy thing to hand somebody and say, this is generally how it's going to work. Curious, like, is there a way to do that with, say, a service type manufacturer?
That's interesting. A service type manufacturer.
An injection molder. I suppose you could, even if it was a part of similar complexity, you could say this is the sort of thing that we've done before.
No, and we've worked with companies like that, and that is helpful because if they have a lot of if a closure manufacturer is a good example, samples of what they've done, and they could send them to you, and you get an idea. Because when I first started working with injection molders, I wasn't I'm not an expert at injection molding, but I have a pretty good understanding because we often work with displays. Often end up in injection molded enclosures. I mean, a lot of things do, right?
Yep.
Understanding, what's the capability, what the finishes might look at, what has different pricing, different ruggedness. I would say having a good demo pool for them would be equally important, and we see that with glass too, because we work with a lot of glass manufacturers. And for example, there's something that does not standard is anti-glare, right? You have a matte finish and you have a gloss finish. Well, how do you rate that? Different manufacturers use different numbers. There's no standards. You have to see it. You have to see. You have to touch it. So being able to get that. Now we keep that in house where we are, but we had to get it from a glass manufacturer who happened to they had a frame with 5 different levels of gloss, and the customer could take that and put it in front of their display. I think in any market, if you can have that, all the different options available, then that cuts the process down quite a bit. That's a fun market.
Adding on to Keith's comments there, depending on the size. So we actually have 3D printers in house that we'll use to make quick turn enclosures, to get a demo or a prototype out to a customer, right? So that's another good way to mitigate it, is having the right in-house equipment and machinery. Allows us to not have to rely on an injection molder that maybe, most of the things we do are either custom or semi-custom, right? So it's going to be rare that somebody like an injection molder just has inventory of enclosures that can fit the bill for a particular display size or opportunity.
Right.
So we fall back on 3D printing a lot to quick turn prototypes, demos. That we have control over it, right? So we're able to cut down on the lead times, et cetera. So I think that's just another good mitigating strategy.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I like to talk about 3D printing too, because I kind of feel like that's the way of the future as well. Like I envision a future where when you want a new iPhone, you basically pay for the file online, and then you use your at-home printer to print the iPhone. And you guys might appreciate this. I came across this company. I interviewed him a couple weeks ago. He has a patent on a material that is highly conductive that you can use inside of any 3D printer. So one off the shelf at Walmart, you can use this. There are some conductive materials that are available like that, but they're very low conductivity. So they have pretty limited applications. But this one is just as good as any copper wire.
So they're printing gold and silver, huh?
Well, it's not even gold and silver. It's some specific compound of copper.
I get it.
Act like a solder,
Yeah, I get it.
Speaking of printed, we've been getting also involved for a number of years now. Printed displays, where using screen printed electrochromic displays, and also printed OLED, which is edge of technology right now.
which I was kind of wondering, like, if that would be some sort of a solution for not having the manufacturing capabilities for the micro LEDs. I don't know if that's possible.
Inkjet, yeah, it's inkjet has a lot of capabilities in an area because it could put down chemicals. The big advantage of printing, by the way, is it's a additive process, not a subtractive process.
Right.
So you only put like, for example, if you're going to make a 3D object, if you're going to CNC it, you're starting with a block and you're cutting away a lot of material.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to process the stuff you cut away. It's the same thing with circuit boards. You start out with 100% of copper. You etch away the copper you don't want. Now you have these, toxic chemicals with copper in them, and you have to dispose of it, recycle it. Where with printed, it's additive. You only put what you need where you need it. So it's way more efficient, way more cost effective. But because it's new technology, it's not perfected yet. But you will see that as well. Printed OLED and printed regular displays, inkjet, high speed inkjet. And then you could start seeing an incorporation of, the traces, the circuits, the display, everything. I think like you do, the way you do that, you'll be able to print an entire circuit right on the desktop.
Yep.
Download a file and print.
fully working. Fully working. Maybe not Star Trek replicator level yet, but
Yeah.
we're moving in that direction. And I think that's
imagine what that would do to Amazon.
Yeah, right.
Very interesting. Well, I mean, I thought we covered a lot of really cool topics here. I think we did a good job of bringing it down to the level of, any manufacturer being able to kind of use the information and, hopefully be able to apply it to their business, which is always good for me. I love to help guys out and really just make U.S. manufacturing more of a success.
If I'm thinking selfishly here, I don't want to give our competitors the secret sauce.
Taste.
No, we're glad to have the conversation and to help out. We bleed displays, right? Like it's in our blood. So these are the exact types of conversations we love to have.
Yep. And we would definitely like to see manufacturing in a big way come back to the United States. I mean,
yes.
It kills me to see stuff that we actually developed and invented, like the transistor, like LCD displays, like touchscreens, and this is all being manufactured in other countries. Yep. So I think we're doing the right things to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Not that we have to have all of it, but we shouldn't have none of it.
Right.
Well, I mean, they're building that big chip factory out in Arizona, right? So
that's a start.
It's a great start. Yeah. Huge start.
Yeah, the high value added stuff I definitely think we could be doing here. And even the low value added stuff, we need the diversification as an economy, right? I mean, we have to be able to have at least some of it here to deal with, instability, geopolitically. So I mean,
and shipping costs. It's the amount of product we have shipped is unbelievable, and that's a energy waste, packaging waste, cardboard, plastics that are not needed. And
it's funny because most companies look on the front end. Well, they're all, chasing the bottom dollar and just putting, logistics and all that as an afterthought. But if you really look at the total cost, I mean, are they really saving money?
Right.
Right.
Yeah, which you could apply that statement to an unbelievable amount of things, even back to the earlier conversation about buying these low quality products that only last a couple of years. I mean, I think somehow we need to change the American consumer's mind in order to change everything else. We have to get people out of this idea like buying the cheapest crap and just buying more and more and more of it and collecting it in your closet is the right way to go about it. It's just not.
Oh yeah. I mean, I think about tools, for instance. I do a lot of woodwork and stuff at home, and I got tools that I got from one of my grandfathers that still work perfectly great. Awesome tools. And then, my new drills and crap that I've bought in the past 5-10 years always seem to break down, but his tools never break down. They just work.
Oh, built-in obsolescence. I learned that term in a previous conversation, but that's exactly, it's like, you want to You want to build products so you can sell more of it in a couple of years, and it's garbage.
Yep.
But hey guys, thanks a lot for coming on today. I enjoyed the conversation, enjoyed meeting you all, and I wish you all the best of success. And I think you have the right business philosophy and product, and I think you're going to do well. I believe it too.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
All
sure.
right.
Much appreciated. Thanks for having us on, Nate.